Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
If you're a high-performing salesperson, you know your time is your most valuable asset. So why waste it on tasks that someone else could handle even better? That's where our friends at Work Better Now come in.
Work Better Now virtual assistants are specially trained to help sales professionals like you fully leverage your time. Imagine offloading administrative work, calendar management, data entry, and follow-ups so you can focus on what you do best, building relationships and closing deals.
With a dedicated assistant at your side, you'll have the bandwidth to grow your pipeline, strengthen client connections, and crush your sales goals.
It's simple. Free up your time, maximize your impact. Let Work Better Now help you work smarter, not harder. Your sales career deserves this game-changing advantage.
Visit workbetternow.com today to learn more and get started, because your time isn't just money, it's everything. Welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Oh, we're in the thick of it. We're right in the middle of summer. Things are heating up. It's our promise. We're always going to bring good guests. Today is no different. Darrell Amy.
We got the negotiator in the house, Stan Christensen. Get a notepad out. This is going to be an amazing conversation. Hey, as we get started, though, I want to welcome everybody who's new to Selling from the Heart. We always have new people listening, and I want to let you know you're welcome here. You've joined a growing community of sales professionals that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust, all the things that define Selling from the Heart. And we love this community of heart-centered sales professionals all around the world.
You know, absolutely. And in order to have heart-centered sales professionals, you must need heart-centered leadership. Special shout out, Joelle Lyons. You're a rock star sales leader. You run a fantastic operating company in the eastern part of the United States. Keep up all the great work. I appreciate you.
Yeah, here. You are a true Selling from the Heart champion. We appreciate you. Well, hey, in today's post-trust world where authenticity is truly the differentiator, today's guest stands out not just for what he knows, but how he teaches others to lead with integrity and impact. We are so thrilled to welcome Stan Christensen. He's an adjunct lecturer at Stanford University and the host of the All Things Negotiation podcast, a compelling series exploring decision-making with some of the world's top thinkers and doers. Stan brings a rare blend of academic rigor and real-world experience, equipping leaders and sales professionals alike to navigate high-stakes conversations with clarity, empathy, and long-term perspective. And he's here with us today. Stan, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're going to have a great time.
Yeah, and as we kick this off, Stan, you know the question that we ask every guest on Selling from the Heart, and that is, what does Selling from the Heart mean to you?
You know, as I was listening to your intro, you mentioned the word authentic, I think 3 times. And I think if you're going to sell from the heart, it has to be authentic. So then the next question as we drill down is, how do you authentically sell? And the answer from my perspective is you have to actually feel the thing you're selling, and you have to be intensely curious about the other party. So while a lot of salespeople come in with a pitch, I think the first thing you should do is ask questions and try to understand the context so that you can empathetically connect with the person. You want to be interested in them rather than them being interested in your sales pitch. So be interested, not interesting, I think would be my approach.
It's so good. And I just got to zero in on this word authenticity just for a moment. Is when you start unpacking what authenticity means to Stan, what's that mean to you in today's day and age?
What it means is operating with integrity and doing what you know is right. It amazes me in today's day and age, so many people you talk to in the street, whatever political party or candidate they support, say the same things, but then they vote against their own feelings and interests. And they usually have some excuse to do so, some justification. And so I think if you're authentic, you have to be true to your word, not only in how you think and what you say, but how you behave.
Well, and I think this goes into negotiation. I'm really looking forward to learning today from you. By the way, congratulations on the show, All Things Negotiation. What this is something every one of our listeners you want to subscribe to, because right at the heart of every sales role, there's always negotiation. So when you think of, I'm curious, first of all, what got you interested in this whole topic and just this negotiation world that you are right in the center of right now?
Well, I've always been interested in persuasion and influence. And so when I was a kid, people said, hey, you should be an attorney because they negotiate. But after taking a close look at that profession, it seemed like what they mostly do is advocate, as opposed to what we were just talking about, which is empathetic listening and persuasion. And so I stumbled in graduate school across a gentleman named Roger Fisher, who was the author of the book Getting to Yes, that you may have seen and heard of. And he persuaded me to come join him. And so I spent 10 years working alongside Roger at the Harvard Negotiation Project. And what we did is advise countries, governments, corporations on key negotiations. So I got a lot of at-bats for those first 10 years of my career.
Wow.
So actually negotiation, it's one of the things I start thinking about when I think of it is, and this is zeroes in, Stan, on in sales, is objection handling and things like that. I'm sure at some point it goes hand in hand, but part of negotiation to me is just having conversations with people, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you can communicate without committing. So let's just dive into that for a second. Listening to them does not mean agreeing. And so I want to have a back and forth with the person I'm selling to about their needs, their understandings, but I don't necessarily make a concession. I think in my experience selling, if people feel understood and heard, and you can figure out what some complementary interests between buyer and seller are, you can usually craft a deal. That's opposed to you cramming down their throat what you think is going to be good for them. And even if you're correct and that the thing you're selling is the solution to their problem, they don't want to be told to that. So you want to, negotiation, one quote I heard once is, it's the art of letting them have your way, but the key word is them. You've got to focus on them.
Well, it's interesting. I think a lot of times as salespeople, when we think about negotiation, we think about, hey, we got through the whole thing. We got to the final page. The terms and the price came up, and then the negotiation starts. But I have a sneaking suspicion that you have a different perspective on when negotiation actually begins.
Yeah, my class at Stanford, I get hundreds and hundreds of kids signing up for 50 spots to try to get in because it's called negotiation. That sounds sexy. Now, if I called the course relationship management with potential customers, how many people would sign up? Would you guys sign up for that class?
Well, Larry probably would, but he'd be your only student.
Well, and so I call it negotiation. What I teach is relationship management. So to answer your question specifically, it starts from the first time you meet them. Both of you, I'm guessing, have examples of people that you met and dealt with in negotiations who you felt didn't really have your interest in mind, took more of a zero-sum approach. How long do you have of those memories of those dealings where you were treated badly?
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, people never forget. Never forget. But if you realize, and this is the key, negotiation is an ongoing relationship where there will be multiple rounds. And so if you take a tactical approach, a zero-sum approach, if I'm going to win this round, most people are going to get even with you eventually, and you're not going to be able to get creative in the future where there are joint gains that you can both partake of when they're put on the table.
When I start thinking about this, Stan, the first, I don't know why, but this word popped into my head was trust. And so, because you had mentioned listening, now you mentioned relationship management as a part of this. All this requires trust. And I think if you're going to have a healthy conversation between two parties, there has to be a certain level of trust in there.
Absolutely. Trust takes a long time to build, and we shouldn't unnaturally give people trust. But it's really easy to break apart. I was interviewing someone on my podcast on recent trade negotiations that our current political administration has undergone. And we've gotten some wins for the US in the short term, but broken down long-term trust. And so that's going to come back to bite us. And so you want to always be thinking about what the long term is and incenting your employees to think about the long-term relationship as opposed to their quota for that quarter. And that's tough to do in organizations, and we could talk about how to do that.
So thinking about this from a sales perspective, we've built the relationship. And I know, obviously people that are listening to Selling from the Heart value relationships, value the things that we're talking about. And we've had a great relationship all the way through, and we get down to the end of it, and we get down to the price, we get down to the terms, and there's friction. I'm curious as a negotiator, how you would coach our heart-centered salespeople. Once again, built relationship, all of this, but now we get down to this point where budget and terms are, putting, sand in the gears, and the deal gets stuck, and the attention starts to rise in the room. What would you say to salespeople at that point that they're doing wrong, or maybe should be thinking about that they're not thinking about?
Let me give you a tactical approach to that. And it comes down to one word, which is fairness. Okay. I probably say once a week in a negotiation, when I'm stuck and that sand is hitting the gears, I say, do you guys want a deal that's more than fair, or should we kind of work together to figure out what's fair for both sides? Very few people will respond, we want more than is fair. Okay. A buyer and seller both have to make money, and they have constituents at their organizations, but you wouldn't be talking if there wasn't a potential to get something that was better than what we think of as your walkaway alternative, another supplier, for example. And so as long as you can get the other side to say, yeah, we want what's fair for our side, and we do care about your interests as well, so let's figure that out. Now, we might disagree on a criteria, an objective criteria for what is fair, but it's much easier to negotiate over what's the right criteria than what's the right number. And so going back to your example of when you hit the numbers, it gets hard. What I try to do is talk about criteria before the numbers, and the numbers naturally fall out of what the objective criteria. And just to define that for your listeners, objective criteria are standards that are independent of either side's wishes and desires. We might look at market data. We might look at competitor data. We might look at precedent. There are lots of different criteria we can use, but that's how you should have the negotiation. And if you can get to criteria rather than numbers, I find you almost always get there. But lead with fairness.
I like that.
How soon do you start talking about that? I'm just curious. So rather than waiting towards the end of this, would you recommend trying to get this out in the open as soon as possible?
Well, the number one thing that I recommend to people is that they prepare for the negotiation. Most people don't prepare. Why don't they prepare? They don't prepare because they don't have a framework. So you've got to give people a framework for preparation, and we could talk about what kinds of frameworks work. But if you have prepared a framework, one thing I often do at the beginning of a negotiation is I say, hey, I came with an agenda. It's just a draft. Happy to use that, or an agenda that you have. But I think we should, sort of follow a process. If you have an agenda, we can use yours or we can use mine. How often in my career do you think people have said, yeah, we come with an agenda as well, let's use ours and not yours? Never.
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
It's never happened, not once.
Yep.
So people don't come prepared. So that gives you a lot of power if you are prepared. So to answer your question specifically, I'm going to come with an agenda that looks something like this. And this is just generic for your listeners. One is, let's compare notes on what we care about, what our interests are, what's our desires. Let's talk about some options for how we can meet those interests. Let's introduce some objective criteria. And only after that, the numbers will follow out. And then we can talk about implementation, who's going to do what, where. Does that seem like a useful agenda to you? And that will be, it sounds simple, but much more sophisticated than most people have. Most people just kind of dodge around the number. They're nervous. They're feeling each other out. And then when the number's put on the table, you get a big reaction. Oh, we could never do that, or that's unfair. And so that's the reason that people don't get there, is they're not prepared and they don't come having done that work ahead of time.
I love that. And I can see the wisdom. My mind's already spinning about how to integrate that early on and throughout a buying process in all of this. What happens if you get stuck? Like what we get down to the end of this and we're stuck. And I know you've been in many situations where it feels like you're stuck in the mud on a negotiation. what would you recommend our friends do when this thing just feels like it's not going anywhere?
Yeah. Number one answer here is pause. And a pause can come in various forms. It can be a bathroom break. It can be a, hey, why don't we go grab a cup of coffee, or why don't we take lunch, or why don't we revisit tomorrow? It depends on the specific negotiation and the constraints that you have. But way too many people try to plow through when they're stuck, and they just go in a downward spiral. And so whether you're stuck based on emotional situation or substance, often the pause, it's just underutilized. People think a pause is weak, and it's just not. It's just regaining your faculties. How many times have you guys been in a negotiation and 5 minutes later you thought, oh, I wish I had said X. I had the killer line, but I couldn't come up with it at the time. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
All the time that happens. And so if you had the pause, even if it's a bathroom break, you can come back with that line or that framework to solve it. So a bunch of answers here, but I'd say number one, don't be afraid to pause in the negotiation.
Oh, I like this. So walk us through what we get to that pause, but what would be some warning signs that we're heading to this point where we're going to have to take a pause?
Yeah, two things. One is people digging in. It's just, you can kind of feel that you're at loggerheads. You're kind of, just there's no creativity left. You've put out your best ideas and it's not going forward. So, that's number one. Number two is emotion. Emotion often plays a big role. Sometimes people use emotion tactically. Let me give you an example. Attorneys often will pound their fist on the table on behalf of their client and say, we could never agree to that. It's outside of anything that's reasonable. It's outside of market. And they want to get a reaction, right? They want you to come back and get heated and get into that dynamic. And then it's sort of people shouting over each other. You've all seen that dynamic. So what I do with those guys, I just hear them out. I just let them vent. And at the end, I say something like, do you need more time? Because if you need more time to vent, we can stay here all day and do this, but I want to get to something productive and we've got an agenda for that. And then they say, who are you to tell me that I'm venting? Who are you to tell me I'm out of control? So you don't want to react. You don't want to let them hook you and pull you in. Okay. So you don't want to get in the act-react dynamic. Let's take a car salesman. How many of you have gone in and talked to a car salesman and they say, how much do you want to pay? This is kind of the typical thing you see in the movies. Does that happen to either one of you?
Yep.
How much do you want to pay? Now, if you throw out a number, they have won the negotiation, right?
Yep.
So what I say is, I just want to pay what's fair. And they say, well, how much is that? Well, we've got to come up with some standards. So I did some research ahead of time, and it turns out the Blue Book valuation is X, or your competitor has it at Y, or I've looked at your recent sales and put that data on the table. That's a sophisticated way to approach that and change the game in an emotional situation. And so be careful of making bad decisions on emotion. Be careful of trying to play the other party's game better than they do. That's that tactical thing. So let's say, Darrell, that 100 tactics and Larry knows 101. Well, maybe Larry wins this round, but what are you going to do next time? Get even, right? You know this guy. You're going to get even.
Yep.
So I have a quick story in this where I was in a negotiation in business school. It was a class exercise. And, we got to the out of class time to negotiate. And the guy said to me, and I hadn't prepared much, frankly. And he said, look, I've done all the preparation. I figured out what the optimal outcome is where we both do really well. Let's just kind of blow off the exercise, put my results up, and we'll go play tennis. We could both use a break. And as a 27-year-old student, I got hooked by that and I got sucked in. And I said, sure, great, Dave, let's go play tennis. So we went and played tennis. Next day we went to class. The instructor put all the results on the board, and he had, out of 90 students, the highest point total in the class. And I had the lowest point total in the class. So he had just used a tactic to take advantage of me, saying, trust me, it's going to go great. Now, I don't remember very much I learned at Harvard Business School, but I am going to get even with Dave eventually.
I love it. Well, hey, you're interviewing, and the show All Things Negotiation. I think this is something we all need to tune into, because you're interviewing all kinds of people that are in high stakes negotiation situations. And I'm just curious, from those interviews or even from some of the stories of your past, what are some of the most interesting negotiations you've witnessed or been a part of?
Well, in terms of the show, let me just mention a couple things, and I can talk personally. I recently interviewed General Stanley McChrystal, who is the commander of all the NATO forces in Afghanistan and ran that war. And if you get to the top of the Army, there's about 1 million people in the Army. And if you're the number one guy, that wasn't an accident. I mean, this guy is good. And we finished the interview, and he said to me, Stan, this was off camera. He said, I never knew this, but as you interviewed me and I told stories, I realized that my whole career was one big, long negotiation. And I think that we don't realize that we're negotiating. We negotiate with our families. We could do a whole session on that. My toughest negotiation partner is my 12-year-old daughter. She just destroys me. I come in with, I can have whatever agenda I want. And I just, I give in at the end. And so, I've had guests like him. Steve Young, football player that you might be familiar with. He was the guest on my show. Now you would say like, hey, where is football and negotiation overlapping? It's incredibly overlapping. So everybody negotiates, number one. I was lucky to be able to be involved in I worked in about 100 different countries as a negotiator, either representing one side or the other, or, maybe facilitating or mediating a dispute. Did a lot of work down in Colombia in the 90s when that was really hot. And the issue down there, not only were the drug lords a problem, but you had the guerrilla groups, the paramilitary groups, the government, and the drug lords, and trying to mediate between those guys, really, really tough. Now, you might ask me, how effective was I, since I didn't solve that one overnight? But what I did do is get a lot of at-bats for high intense situations. So when I'm in some corporate negotiation and, I say, well, I was down in Colombia mediating this thing, everyone just backs off and says, whoa, that guy did real stuff. We're just here, fighting over a sale to meet our quota. And so know that, and here's the punchline, it's all the same stuff. The way you negotiate with your wife or your kids or a guerrilla leader or in a sales transaction, it's all the same stuff. It's persuasion and influence. And so you want to learn this, and most people aren't very good at it.
Oh. Hey, so, okay, Stan, inquiring minds want to know, who'd you have to negotiate with to get one of the highest ranking officials in the military to come on the podcast?
What I did is, and you guys might use this tactic as well, which is another guest. So he just came to me. I didn't even ask. He said, hey, would you be interested in interviewing General McChrystal? He has a new book out. And I said, boy, would I. That would be amazing. And so it's either people from my network or people that come on my podcast. And I always ask, my last question, when we debrief is, hey, do you have a couple of people you think would be good on the podcast? And so I get them that way.
Love it.
That's how I met Stan. I met Stan through Damon Lemby.
There you go.
That's cool. Damon's podcast. Yeah. So that's a look. And all of us are in the education business, and sales is such a horizontal skill. And so everybody does sales. We could talk about that. And so if you are good at sales, one thing I say to my students is sometimes, kids at Stanford think, hey, I don't want to go into sales right away. I'd rather do something, a little more analytic. And I say, look, the senior people in organizations started out in sales, and all senior people are salespeople. I mean, who do you know that's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that doesn't go on sales calls? And so if you can sell, you can get paid. And if you can negotiate, you can sell.
Beautiful. Well, if you could say one thing to the salespeople of the world about negotiation that you haven't shared yet, how would you encourage us?
Yeah. The key thing is, people, let's say I'm at a cocktail party. This happens all the time. People say, I'm not going to take your class at Stanford, but tell me the 5 things that I need to know about your course. Give me the 2-minute version.
Yes.
And sometimes the answers, I change them over the years because I get bored of hearing myself talk. But one that I like to repeat is to question the assumptions that you make going into that sales call. So you come with some assumptions, question those assumptions, and be willing to shift gears, as opposed to have a solution that you're trying to persuade them of. There's nothing more persuasive than being open to persuasion. And so if I can go in and learn something and adjust my approach based on my approach or even the substance of what I do, remember that what we're trying to do is expand the pie. And the way you expand the pie isn't taking short-term advantage, it's developing that relationship that I talked about. And so if you can go in and at the end of that process, they don't say, oh, he beat me up, or a thing I hear all the time is, well, both sides feel really bad, so it must be a successful transaction. Okay. Well, that's the worst measure of success I've ever heard. I want them to say both sides feel good, therefore it's a useful transaction. And so it's that question your assumptions, go in with something to learn, and be open to persuasion. Then you're going to make the sale.
Hey, you know what I'm just thinking about, just really, really super quick, because I love what you just said, is this is dancing through my head, is walking into these conversations with two things to think about. I can either attach to the conversation and the outcome, or I could detach from the conversation and the outcome. And I think if we go in with that detachment mode, I think good things open up, because that's where possibilities start to happen.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're trusting the other side to be a co-creator of the process that leads to the outcome, as opposed to, creating a hierarchy where I'm a better negotiator than you and I won in this situation.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, co-creation.
I mean, you guys are you guys married?
Of course. Happily,
Yes.
very happily married, Stan.
Okay, so who's winning your marriage?
Hey, Stan, the CEO of my household, and you're not looking at him.
Well, you need to be the co-CEO, so you need to negotiate that.
Yeah, there you go. That's a whole other show, which should be a lot of fun. Hey, Stan, this has been amazing, and I know our listeners are thinking, "Hey, how can I get more Stan Christensen in my life?"
I don't know if they want more, but they do want more of my guests on my podcast. And so the podcast, is on YouTube, All Things Negotiation. That's probably the best place, because you can, see the interpersonal dynamic, but it's also on Apple and Spotify. And I'd encourage you to subscribe and give me any feedback. I'm only 9 months into it, but we've got some good traction and some great guests.
Love it. Love it. Well,
So
thank you
good.
so much for sharing your heart and your time with us today. This has been amazing, and we really, really appreciate you.
Fun to be with you guys. Thanks.
Hey, thanks,
Awesome.
Stan.
Awesome. What a great conversation, Larry. There's so many nuggets in there, and it just makes me recognize that this skill of negotiation is something we need to double down on. I want to encourage everybody listening in, go and subscribe to Stan's podcast, because what we need to do, I think there's a lot we can learn from some of these big picture negotiations, kind of outside of the sales realm, if you will, that are really going to help us. So I'm curious, what stood out to you, Larry?
What Stan said at the very end, where I need to learn how to become the co-CEO of my household, but never. Stan, that was good. But no, I think, what really stood out was how this actually starts in the very beginning. Yeah, I mean, let's not wait to the very end. Let's start co-creating this. Let's start having these types of conversations from the get-go. That way, I don't think there's any surprises.
Absolutely. And I think this idea of collaborative selling and understanding the framework up front, something we believe in, and something that we can all grow in as well. Speaking of growth, make sure to subscribe. We've got some amazing guests coming up throughout the rest of the summer. You don't want to miss it. Thank you to everybody who's liking or sharing the podcast, especially those of you who are leaving reviews. All of this is helping us build this movement of authenticity right here in this sales profession we all love.
And this happens all together, so we appreciate you. Thank you for being a supporter of all of us here at Selling from the Heart.
So until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, develop your skills as a negotiator, and most of all,
Sell from the heart.